right? So the very first thing we do, and this is hard, this is the hardest, but it's the foundation of every negotiation that I've coached. It's the foundation of every agreement I've really been in, is what's our mission and purpose? Our mission and purpose is not for our gain. It's not the results that we're looking for. So it sounds a little confusing, but it's what are we trying to help the other side, the person we're negotiating with? I use the word opponent. That's not a negative, right? My 6-year-old grandson is a staunch opponent of mine, right? Kids are the best negotiators, by the way. But what are we trying to help the other side see and discover so that how they benefit from the agreement that we're seeking? It's not about us, it's about them. So how do we identify the mission and purpose? Like our mission and purpose, talking to the teams up in DC about the pilot problem, we were trying to help them see and discover that by implementing a change to the policy of retaining technician instructor pilots, they could avoid catastrophic accidents in the future, which would maintain our readiness, save lives, and provide long-term reliability and sustainability for the Air National Guard pilot force, period. That's not to our benefit, but we have to help them see it. And you can't tell anybody anything. You almost, I don't know if you remember this, but we had to ask questions to help them discover what the problem was. Right?
Yeah.
When they, well,
Yeah.
we looked at the database, Mike and Jim, and all our positions are filled. I said, yeah, I understand that, but what's the experience level of all those positions? What's their tenure? How long have they been there? Well, we don't know. Well, is there a way to find that out? No, we're going to have to do that the hard way. But I remember when they plotted the experience, it should be a healthy bell curve of experience. We had a U. We were hollow in the middle, which means we had a train wreck coming. So our mission and purpose was to help them see and discover through their eyes, their idea, not me presenting and being, because you know how if we just go at them and say, we got a huge problem, well, they'll say, well, where's the vision? Like, I don't see the emotional vision of benefit here. So there's 4 reasons why people don't say yes. It's either they don't see it, they don't see the real problem, they don't see the benefit of fixing it, or they don't have the data to back it up. Or in our case, we found out a lot of them didn't have the level of authority, right? That's a big risk. They didn't have level of authority to make the change, or they're bluffing, but I think the hardest one for leadership of those 4 is creating that initial vision, the initial mission and purpose of what you're trying to help that individual see. So as a leader, that's one of the first things you have to figure out, but you can't just tell them, you got to help them see it for themselves. In business, and this is what's really amazing, that first step is exactly what we're coaching our clients to do before a business merger or a meeting. Quit worrying about your results. How are you going to help the other side with this deal? Doesn't mean you're giving things away, but what angle are you using to help them figure this out to see, okay, this might be beneficial for me as well. So that's the hardest one, is creating that vision.
I wish I'd read your dad's book, and then your book didn't exist at the time, but I wish it did, because I specifically remember one person that we were arguing with, she was saying, pilots make so much money, it's disgusting. We don't need to change the number. And I was explaining, I said, well, economics, 101, supply and demand, there's far little supply and a huge demand for these pilots. So we have to meet that need. Me personally, I was thinking, okay, what's the win-win situation so where everybody's happy? Can you talk about win-win in your methodology?
Sure. So what you just mentioned with we were
Of course they mean well, but it was difficult.
Absolutely. So in our second step in our checklist is, okay, after we have our mission and purpose, we have to analyze the problems. Problems are anything that's going to hinder us from reaching an agreement. Right. So that's the first thing we're going to deal with. And underneath problems, we look at emotional baggage. So in that case, she had emotional baggage that pilots make too much money. Does that make sense? I mean, we almost have to put that on the table before we get into go any deeper. Now, I mentioned results earlier. And if I ask you, what can you truly control? There's only 2 things that are valid goals. If I set out to negotiate to get a win-win deal how can I manage somebody else's win when I don't even have the ability to control my own win? Negotiation is a human performance event. It's no different than public speaking, right? You're going to have, I used to have a executive officer that would grade me because I was terrified of speaking in front of crowds. I'm not anymore, but back then I was nervous I mean, I hated it, right? It was
Once again, getting you out of your comfort zone. Look how
right,
much you've developed because of that.
correct. But I couldn't control the win or the loss. I can't control whether or not I won that speech. Was it really good? Maybe not. Sometimes I hit it out of the park, but a lot of times that was because I just went from the heart. So that's what I learned. Quit rehearsing and just go from the gut because people trust that. So I can't manage my wins and losses. We can practice all day long. We could go buy a professional football team right now, hire the best coaches, practice all day long. Are we guaranteed to win the Super Bowl? No. So what can we manage? And the same thing holds true. How do I manage the win of the other side? What do I have to give something away to make them happy? That's what everybody believes. And compromise is deeply rooted in our country's mindset about negotiation. Our company helps people avoid unnecessary compromise. We don't say compromise doesn't happen, but compromise is a mindset that's deeply ingrained. If I say, if you were to say to me, hey, Jim, I don't want to buy your product, it's too expensive.